There was a moment in Dr. Lucia Aronica's life when she was 14 years old, standing at the edge of something she couldn't explain, watching the strongest man she'd ever known slowly disappear. Her father, a physician who had spent his entire life healing other people, was the one who needed saving. And nobody could save him. That moment didn't break her. It built her. It carved a question so deep into her heart that she spent the next 30 years of her life at Stanford University trying to answer it. What if the food on your plate is more powerful than the disease in your genes? What if the fork in your hand is more powerful than your family history? What if everything you were told about your health, about your fate, about what's possible for your body was only half the story? Stay with me, because what you're about to hear in the next 12 minutes could genuinely change the direction of your life. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button right now, because we put out content like this every single week, stories in science that help real people build real lives they're proud of. Let's go back to the beginning, because this story doesn't start in a laboratory. It starts in a kitchen. Lucia grew up in Italy, and in Italy, food is not a transaction. It is not something you rush through between meetings or eat standing over a sink. In Italy, food is language. It is memory. It is the long conversation between generations. Her grandmother didn't know what epigenetics was. She couldn't have spelled it if you'd asked her, but she knew that a tomato cooked slow in olive oil tasted different. She knew that crushed garlic smelled different than chopped garlic. She knew that taking your time at the table made people feel alive in a way that had nothing to do with calories. And what Lucia eventually discovered at one of the most prestigious universities in the world is that her grandmother was doing something profound without ever knowing it. She was rewriting her family's genes with every single meal. Now, I want you to think about someone in your life. Maybe it's your mother, maybe it's your father, maybe it's you staring in the mirror on a Tuesday morning wondering why nothing has ever worked, why every diet has failed, why you keep ending up back where you started no matter how hard you try. If that's you, I want you to hear this clearly. You are not broken. You are not weak. You are not someone with bad genes or bad luck or a bad relationship with food. What Lucia discovered in her research at Stanford is that every single time you go on a restrictive diet, lose weight, and then gain it back, your fat cells create what is called an epigenetic memory of weight gain. Your cells remember being heavy. They adapt. They fight to return to what they learned was normal. It is not a moral failure. It is biology. But here is what makes this not just fascinating, but genuinely hopeful. At Stanford, Lucia and her team showed that if you lose weight and maintain it for just 6 months, your fat cells begin to unlearn that memory. The genes that burn fat start switching back on. The inflammatory genes start quieting down. 6 months, that's the window. And the secret to staying consistent for 6 months, she says, is not willpower. It is pleasure. You cannot white-knuckle your way to health. You cannot hate your way to a transformation. But you can fall in love with real food, and that love will carry you further than discipline ever could. Let's talk about what she calls epinutrients, because this is where the science gets cinematic. Imagine that your DNA is a book, and every single day, enzymes called writers and erasers are editing that book based on the signals they receive. What you eat sends signals. What you drink sends signals. Whether you walked outside today or sat still, that sends a signal. Epinutrients are specific compounds in food that send especially powerful signals to those writer and eraser enzymes, and they fall into 2 main categories. The first are methyl donors, which are essentially the ink your genes use to write healthy instructions. These come from protein-rich foods, from eggs, from liver, from green leafy vegetables, from beets and spinach, and shellfish. Without enough of these, your genetic instructions literally run out of ink. The second category is what Lucia calls epibioactives, which are the signal senders. the compounds that tell your enzymes what to write and where. And these are hiding in plain sight in foods you probably already know: tomatoes, broccoli, garlic, blueberries, dark chocolate, fermented foods like yogurt and kimchi and sauerkraut. But here's what nobody ever told you about these foods. It's not just that you eat them, it's how you prepare them that determines whether they work at all. Take broccoli. Broccoli contains a compound called glucoraphanin, which your body can convert into something called sulforaphane, and sulforaphane is extraordinary. It is not just an antioxidant, it is the boss of your body's entire antioxidant army. It switches on a genetic master switch called NRF2, which activates more than 200 protective genes involved in detoxification, inflammation defense, and cellular repair. And while a standard antioxidant like vitamin C might work for a few hours and then disappear, sulforaphane keeps those genes switched on for up to 3 days. 2 or 3 servings of cruciferous vegetables per week is enough to keep your protective genes running. But here's the catch. Raw broccoli sitting in your refrigerator contains no sulforaphane whatsoever. None. Sulforaphane is created the same way a glow stick works. 2 compounds inside the broccoli, glucoraphanin and an enzyme called myrosinase, have to physically mix together. And that only happens when you chew or chop the broccoli, breaking the plant's cell walls and allowing the reaction to begin. Which means that if you throw raw broccoli directly into boiling water, the heat kills the myrosinase before it can do its job, and you get none of the benefit. If you buy frozen broccoli that was blanched before freezing, the myrosinase has already been destroyed. The glow stick is broken before you even bought it, but chop your broccoli 40 minutes before you cook it. Let the reaction happen before any heat is applied, and you dramatically increase the sulforaphane you actually absorb. Add a teaspoon of mustard, another cruciferous vegetable, to your cooked broccoli, and the mustard's myrosinase resurrects the reaction all over again. Or grow broccoli sprouts on your kitchen counter, because 1 ounce of broccoli sprouts contains up to 100 times the glucoraphanin of mature broccoli. This is not a diet tip. This is epigenetic medicine growing in a glass jar on your windowsill. The same glow stick principle applies to garlic. When you crush a garlic clove, 2 compounds, alliin and alliinase, mix together and produce allicin, one of the most powerful epinutrients in nature. Allicin decreases LDL cholesterol by 10%, fights inflammation, and boosts immune function. But alliinase is as heat-sensitive as myrosinase, which means if you throw a whole garlic clove directly into a hot pan, you get almost none of it. Crush the garlic first, then wait 5 minutes for the reaction to peak. Then either add it raw at the very end of cooking for maximum potency, or cook it gently in olive oil for no more than 2 to 5 minutes. 2 cloves a day prepared that way, and your body receives an epigenetic signal that reaches all the way into your DNA. Your grandmother's kitchen wasn't tradition for the sake of tradition. It was precision medicine before anyone had the language to call it that. Now let's talk about something that 90% of Americans are deficient in without even knowing it. A nutrient so forgotten that Lucia has to spell it out every time she mentions it in a lecture. choline, choline. It is part of every single cell membrane in your body. In the brain, it produces acetylcholine, the neurotransmitter responsible for memory, focus, and movement. In the liver, it packages fat and exports it, which means without enough choline, fat accumulates in your liver, regardless of how clean the rest of your diet is. And for your genes, choline is part of the ink supply, the raw material your epigenetic writers need to function. Research that Lucia conducted alongside Randy Jirtle, considered the godfather of nutritional epigenetics, showed that when pregnant women consumed more than double the standard recommended amount of choline during pregnancy, their children demonstrated higher cognitive abilities and lower anxiety responses even 7 years later. 7 years after birth, the children's stress response genes were still running differently because of what their mothers ate during pregnancy. That is the reach of epigenetics. That is how far a single meal can travel through time. Most people get roughly half the choline they need each day. The eggs you've been told to fear, the ones that supposedly raise your cholesterol, which Lucia's research directly contradicts, are one of nature's most concentrated choline sources. The science now shows clearly that dietary cholesterol and blood cholesterol are not the same thing. Your liver produces roughly 80% of your circulating cholesterol, and if you eat more, it produces less. When people in Stanford studies tripled their dietary cholesterol as part of a weight loss program, their blood lipids actually improved. The problem was never the egg, the problem was the donut. What's keeping you from the health you want is not found in a hard-boiled egg. It is found in the ultra-processed, hyper-palatable, chemically engineered food-like substances that the food industry spent billions of dollars making you addicted to. And the moment you understand that, you stop dieting and you start choosing. There is a difference, and that difference is everything. We have to talk about omega-3 fatty acids, because this is perhaps the most misunderstood area of nutrition in the modern world. Omega-3s are what Lucia calls your body's cellular fire department. They switch on genes that suppress chronic inflammation, and chronic inflammation is the engine behind almost every major disease of aging, heart disease, cognitive decline, metabolic disorders, accelerated aging of the skin. Now, most health-conscious people believe they are getting enough omega-3s from chia seeds, flax seeds, and walnuts. And here is the hard truth. They are not, and they cannot be, not through those sources alone. Those plant-based omega-3s come in the form of ALA, which the body must convert into the active forms EPA and DHA. The conversion rate in the best-case scenario, a young, healthy woman with no inflammation, is 5 to 8%. For men, it is as low as 0.5%, which means to get therapeutic levels of omega-3s from flaxseed alone, you would need to eat a full cup of flaxseed every single day. That is not a nutrition strategy. That is a nutritional fantasy. Fatty fish, salmon, mackerel, sardines, anchovies, herring, 3 to 4 times per week is where this benefit is actually delivered. And a quality omega-3 supplement fills in the rest. Now here's what I want you to do right now, before you watch another video, before you open another tab, before the day pulls you back into its rhythm and this feeling fades. Leave a comment below this video. Tell me one thing you are going to change this week. One food you are going to add, one preparation habit you are going to try. Share this video with someone you love, someone you've been worried about, someone who has been blaming their genes for their struggle and doesn't yet know that the pencil is in their hand. Because that's what this kind of information is for. Not to sit still in an algorithm, to travel, to reach the person who needs it. Lucia Aronica lost her father at 14 years old. She watched a brilliant, dedicated physician fade away before his time. And instead of letting that loss become a wound that closed her down, she let it become a question that opened her up. Every paper she has written, every student she has taught, every lecture she has given in that Stanford classroom is his legacy continuing through her. And her mother, at 84 years old, photographed in a navy blue dress with a red sash and a flower at her collar, eyes bright, smile wide, full of joy and purpose, and the kind of vitality that no protocol could manufacture, is the proof. Aging is not purely biological. It is psychological. It is social. It is built in the kitchen and at the table, and in the decision to slow down long enough to actually taste your life. Pleasure is not the enemy of health. Lucia says it plainly, and she means it. Pleasure is your compass. Your genes are not your fate. They are your opportunity. Every meal you eat is a message. Every walk you take is a signal. Every night of real sleep is a chapter being rewritten. You are not a passive reader of a story that was written before you were born. You are the author. Pick up the pencil, write something worth living. Sonnet 4.6.